Welcome to Mother Art Projects. I'm Steph, I'm Vicky, and today we're building some much needed big tote garage storage, and we're building it on a pallet. Now, why do we need big totes? Well, I needed to store a lot of my kayaking gear, which is life jackets, paddles, and things that don't fit into regular totes. So that's why this was much needed. Now, we didn't want to spend a whole lot of money on this project because, it is in a garage. So we actually used materials that we found in our scrap wood supply, and we also used the pallet is actually from another project. So we only spent about $25 for new materials to build this. This is also a beginner-friendly project as we use simple joinery using fence brackets to attach the 2x4s to the surfaces. And because this is the garage, everything we have in there needs to be on wheels so we can move around. This is no exception. It's built on a pallet that has 4 really good sized wheels. So let's show you how this all came together.
The first step is to find a pallet. Some pallets can be treated with harsh chemicals, which shouldn't be used for a DIY project. So make sure you look for a pallet with the HT stamped on it, which stands for heat treated. Next, you want to clean it. We found the quickest way to dust it off is with a workbench brush, and if it's really dirty, use a pressure washer. Make sure it's completely dry, then paint it if you wish. Next, attach casters to each corner. We're using heavy-duty locking casters rated for 330 pounds each. We did add an extra piece of wood underneath each caster so we had enough support for the screws. Next, we're cutting 3 sheets of wood to the same size as the pallet. These will serve as the bottom, middle, and top shelves. We're using our track saw to cut up existing wood that we had in our scrap pile. We did have to piece together 2 shelves by gluing and adding extra support to secure them together. For this shelf, Mom did add some extra wood fill just for a smoother surface. We did purchase 3 2x4s that were 104 inches in length. Then we cut 12 pieces at 20 inches each on our miter saw. With everything cut, we tested it out and made sure the design worked. Right on top of the pallet, we placed a piece of leftover melamine. Then we placed the totes and the 2x4 brackets to check the fit. We added the 1/2-inch plywood shelf next that we also pieced together. Then we placed another row of 2x4s and then the leftover piece of MDF. It works! So we deconstructed it and Mom painted everything, and once that was dry, we loaded it up in the van to take it to my house, as once it's constructed, it's not going to fit in a vehicle. These are the 2x4 fence brackets that we're going to use to attach the unit together. And these are Simpson strong tie waffle head wood screws that don't require pre-drilling and work perfect with these brackets. On to assembly. We place the melamine on the pallet, then again we place the totes to make sure the placement would be correct. We clamp the first one in place and then use our Craig multi-mark ruler to make sure they were all the same distance from the edge. As I screwed in the bracket, that same screw is also attaching the melamine to the pallet. We repeated the same process for all the brackets. Then we started to add the 2x4s. We just inserted it into the bracket, made sure it was square, then added a screw on each side. Next, we added the 1/2-inch plywood middle shelf. And again, when I attach the bracket in place, it's also securing it to the shelf and 2x4 underneath. We repeated this process for the remainder of the brackets. We used an impact driver to attach all these screws. It's designed specifically for driving screws with ease. Lastly, we added the MDF top shelf. To secure the top shelf, we used the same screws and secured it with 2 screws into each support. Now, we did use 3 different types of materials for the shelves because that's what we had on hand. But if we were buying new, I think 3/4-inch plywood would be the best option. A quick test and it moves perfect. I loaded it up and moved it into place. All 4 casters lock in place so this can be nice and secure. You can see it's easy to remove the totes and access the contents. And if I need to get to something behind this, I can move it out of the way, then move it back in place. These casters roll with ease and have no trouble with the weight. And I love that there's a space on top to put anything extra that I don't want on the floor of my garage.
What we learned! Now you might be wondering, why don't I just stack the totes on top of each other? Well, I've been doing that for about a year and it's really annoying because the totes are larger and they can be heavy, and so every time you have to get to the bottom tote, you gotta unstack them and it's really annoying. Now these are great totes because they have wheels on them, so once one is removed I can easily wheel it around, but to be able to stack them, it just didn't work out. So I will tell you, it doesn't work, don't ask.
Now this project has a lot of history. This palette we're using is actually from a project we did way back in 2015. And that's actually when Mother-Daughter Project started. And Steph reminded me that was our 10th project. But anyway, we found that pallet on the side of the road in Steph's neighborhood, and we walked it back down to her house. And this was in the summer, and my grandson was home, and he wanted to make a Lego surface that he could work on. And that's what we did. We built a Lego building surface and used that for years until we remodeled the Lego room.
But Mom forgot one thing. The purple top that was on top of the Lego palette actually is from 2013 when I moved into my house. I had a washer and dryer next to each other, and I got that piece of MDF wood cut at Home Depot. I painted it purple, and it was the working surface on top of my washer and dryer. But a couple years after that, I decided to stack my washer and dryer, so I didn't have a need for that wood, and it was just sitting in the garage. And that's how we utilized it for the Lego palette. And then after the palette was out of the Lego room, it just kind of was demoted to just kind of a corner of the garage. We just kind of stacked stuff on top of it. And over time, something leaked on the MDF, which is a wood that easily absorbs liquids if something gets wet on top of it. And so we had to address that in this project.
Well, I had to address it. I don't know what was on that pallet, but it was pretty gross. So I took my time cleaning that up, and I used a hammer and a chisel to whittle that down a little bit more flat. And then once I got it flat enough, I used a sander, sanded it like crazy, put in some wood fill, painted it. We turned it upside down so you can't even tell it was there.
Now, did you notice our very big wheels in this project? So these are beefy, heavy-duty wheels that we actually bought, again, back in 2015, and they were $11 each. And
which at the time I thought $44 for wheels, that's a lot of money.
We thought that was a lot, but this was for my nephew's building table. It was worth it. But I will tell you, these are great wheels. They have held up super well. They are basically like they were the day that we bought them. They're really great quality. And I did look them up recently because I was curious if they still sell them and how much they would be. And guess what? They're $20 now.
So that would have been $80 for wheels.
Yes. So that is something that we've noticed through the years of DIYing is casters cost a lot. Like, they are expensive. But I will say if we'd used a cheaper caster for this, it probably would not have held up. I do want to point out that this is not most of my kayak storage. Most of that's actually inside of my house. We did a project where we showed how to make a closet for outdoor gear, and we actually stored 2 kayaks in that. So we'll put a link to that video for you to check out. And if you want to see more projects from us, be sure to visit us at motherdaughterprojects.com and subscribe right here on YouTube. Thanks for joining. Bye. Oh, and if you like doing stuff outdoors, kayaking, hiking, that sort of thing, and greyhounds, I have a second channel called Hi, I'm Steph, and you can check all of that out.